In video number 11, we're going to continue our discussion of pronouns with our discussion now of pronouns and case. Now, case is something that really matters more in other languages like Latin and German. It doesn't matter so much in English. But in general, what case does is it, depending on the function or the use of a word in a sentence, that word changes its form because it's changed its case. Now, in earlier videos, I've given a general breakdown of case in English, and really, for our purposes, for the SAT especially, case really is only going to matter for pronouns. Now, there are generally two cases in English. The first is the subjective case or the nominative case, generally called the subjective in English because it generally has to deal with the subjects. So when a pronoun is a subject, it takes these forms: I, you, he, she, it, we, you, and they. So I hit, he hit, we hit, and so on. Now, the other case, when the pronoun is the object of a sentence or the receiver or beneficiary of an action, that takes the objective case, sometimes referred to as the accusative case. That's really more for other languages where the accusative has a more specific definition, because in this case, objective kind of mixes together the accusative and the dative case, if you're familiar with other languages. For our purposes, though, just remember there's the subjective and the objective. And the way to remember that as well is it's when the pronoun is a subject versus when it's an object. Now, the objective forms of the pronouns are me, you, him, her, it, us, you, and them. So where do we see case errors coming up on the SAT? Well, let me show you a few examples of some sentences that make errors with case, and we'll explain how to find out when there's a case error and then how to fix it if we need to. First sentence: John and me walked to the store after school. Now, in school, you've probably been, this rule has probably been drilled into your head. We probably noticed originally, oh, okay, this has got to be I, John and I. Now, the thing is, though, it's not always the case that when you have a compound subject, like we do in this case, where one of those nouns is a pronoun, a personal pronoun, it's not always the case that you're going to switch it from me to I, for instance, or from him to he, or whatever. And we're going to see other examples where it's not going to be the case, where actually me is going to be right. So what you have to do is avoid the temptation to overcorrect, to think that John and me is always going to be John and I, regardless of how it's used, because that's not true. It depends on how the pronoun, how the compound subject, or the compound noun is being used in the sentence. And again, it comes down to, is it a subject or is it an object? Well, let's see. Who is doing the walking? Well, it's John and I are doing the walking. Therefore, me should be in the subject case. Therefore, it should be I, not me. If you don't want to go by this general kind of grammar definitions, by what objective and nominative and all that stuff, what all that junk means, the trick I can give you is this. Whenever you see a compound noun, such as John and me, cross out the John and, reread the sentence, and see if it sounds right. So, for this example, we'd have me walked to the store. No, it's got to be I walked to the store. So that's how you know I would be the answer here. Let's look at the next one. The old man heard my brother and I sneaking into his house. Again, this is an example. You might think, oh, it's my brother and I. That's okay. That's what it should be. This would be an example of overcorrection, because actually, what's going on here? My brother and I, is that an object or a subject? Who's doing the hearing here? Well, the old man is the subject, right? The subject of the sentence, the subject that is doing the hearing. My brother and I are the things that are being heard here, right? They are the objects. They are the direct objects of the heard, of the hearing. So actually, since I is an object, it should be in the objective case. Therefore, it should be me. Well, again, if you don't want to do that, if you don't want to rely on those terms, just cross out the other part of the compound subject or the compound noun and see how it sounds. So the old man heard I sneaking into his house? No, the old man heard me sneaking into his house. Okay. By the way, I just realized now that I've written this sentence and reading it again. Some people may argue that this should actually read the old man heard my sneaking into his house, that it should be possessive here. I don't want to get into that. This is the idea of a fused participle. This is a whole big thing, and I've had multiple debates with people about this. For our purposes here, just, if we just got rid of the sneaking into his house for a second, it still stands, right? The old man heard me, not the old man heard I. Anyway, that's a whole other topic I won't be getting into. It's just beyond the purposes, beyond the scope of what we need to do for the SAT. Anyway, next one. Do me a favor and keep this between you and I. Again, this is another case of overcorrection. Actually, it should be you and me. Now, this one's a little bit harder to analyze because what we've got here, we don't have necessarily an object or a subject case with I, based on the function of it in the sentence as a subject or an object. What we have is it's the object or the complement of this preposition. So this is a prepositional phrase, between you and me. Why is it then me and not I? Well, the rule is whenever you have a preposition and then you have a pronoun coming after that preposition, it always takes the object case. So in this case, it's between you and me. And actually, between is something that the SAT likes to test a lot. So make sure when you have between, it's between you and me, or between him and her, or between us and them, whatever. It's always going to take the objective case. Oh, sorry. Next, he gave John and I the key. Okay, what about this one? Again, let's just do it this way. Let's cross out John and see how it sounds. He gave I the key? No. He gave me the key. And again, in this case, the I in the compound noun here is not actually a direct object, right? Because we are not being given. This person is actually giving the key, so the key is the direct object, whereas John and I are the indirect objects. Still, though, they're still under the banner of the objective case, therefore, I is going to be me. Last one, he gave the key to John and I. Again, another case of overcorrection. It should be to John and me. Why? Well, again, John and me, or John and I, in this case, is an indirect object, right? The key is being given to, we are the beneficiaries of it, the indirect beneficiaries, right? We're not being given the key, we're not being the thing that's being given, but we are receiving the key nonetheless. So therefore should take the objective case, but also you see we have a preposition here as well, to John and me, so therefore any pronoun that comes after a preposition must take the objective, so this must be me. Okay, so that's it for case. That's really all we need to know for the SAT. Again, it's good to learn these terms if you can, objective, nominative, subjective, all that stuff. But also you could always cross out the compound noun and then see how it sounds to confirm your answer. And then also remember that pronouns coming after prepositions always take the objective case. In the next video, we're going to discuss relative, indefinite, and reflexive pronouns.